Hello everyone, welcome back to the Aspire MDS Neet MDS 2022 discussion. So there is one more simulating questions which asks that patients who are unable to degrade phytanic acid due to the deficiency of phytanyl-CoA hydroxylase are affected from which disorders? So the options were Zoglen syndrome, Frey syndrome, Raphsoms syndrome, and the Plummer-Vinson syndrome. First of all, let us know the answer. The answer to this question is Raphsoms syndrome or Raphsoms disease. So let us understand about Raphsoms disease in detail. So this Raphsoms disease is a neurocutaneous syndrome that is characterized by accumulation of phytanic acid in plasma and tissues. Now let us understand the mechanism of fatty acids. Now as we know, fatty acids are the sources of fat in the body, and they are derived from the food items what we take, and they break down into various long chain or short chain branched fatty acids, and the energy is generated. So this is how they are converted to small and large chain fatty acids. Now, when they are broken down, they are this activity takes place in peroxisome. Okay. Now, suppose this is a peroxisome, and there are various short chain or long chain fatty acids which are there, and also there are channels which are there present in the peroxisome, and these are open. Okay, these are the open gated channels which are present, but due to this disorder in Raphsoms disease, there is one channel or one gate that is blocked. Now, due to this blockage, what occurs? The entire branch chain fatty acids get deposited or accumulated over here, and ultimately it leads to higher accumulation in the body. Okay. Now, why this occur? Why does it occur? This Raphsoms disease has got a DNA defect in which there is a altered peroxisome assembly, due to which the breakdown of phytanic acid is not possible. It accumulates over here into the peroxisome and ultimately accumulates in the body. Now, as it gets into excess, it is harmful to the body, and it breaks down the fat. As the breakdown of fat occurs, later stages, it leads to more and more release of phytanic acid and causing this disorder, that is Raphsoms disorder. Now let us understand what are the symptoms of this Raphsoms disease. You can see the clinical features that start with retinitis pigmentosa. That is a feature in which there is a altered dark vision, or we can be said as a tunnel vision. The patients, they can just see into one specific direction, that is called as a tunnel vision. Also, there is anosmia, that is loss of smell. There is peripheral neuropathy. In the later stages, there can be loss of hearing. Also, there are bone abnormalities that are diagnosed, cerebellar ataxia, and also there is ichthyosis. Okay, all these skin disorders. Other symptoms may include cataracts, nystagmus, small pupils, skeletal dysplasia, cardiac arrhythmia, and weakness. So this, as we know, this Raphsoms disease in the later stages can be very harmful, and it is a degrading condition. The more complicated thing about this is it is diagnosed later, and as more and more the diagnosis gets delayed, it gets difficult to be treated. Now the thing comes how this Raphsoms disease is managed. Now, to manage this Raphsoms disease, the person who are affected from this Raphsoms disease, they should avoid foods which are high in phytanic acid. For example, it can be dairy products, it can be red meat, or certain fish. So these food are to be avoided. Also, they should minimize the fat burning, because more the fat burning, there will be more the accumulation of phytanic acid. So in this case, we will be asking the patients usually opposite than what we ask, that is to minimize the exercise, to minimize the weight loss, to minimize fasting also, to decrease the stress also. So these are the conditions, or these are the options that you can give for the management of Raphsoms disease. Also, in case of acute Raphsoms disease, we can go for plasmapheresis, in which we can remove the phytanic acid from the peroxisomes. So these are the major features and management of Raphsoms disease. So in all, we can say that patients with Raphsoms disease are unable to degrade the phytanic acid because of deficient activity of phytanyl-CoA hydroxylase enzyme, which is a peroxisomal enzyme catalyzing the first step of phytanic acid alpha oxidation. So that's all for Raphsoms disease that you need to remember. Coming on to the next question, which is the most common cerebral palsy in children, or most of the cerebral palsy in children are spastic, dyskinetic, ataxic, or mixed. Again, we will discuss the answer over here. The answer is spastic cerebral palsy. We will see about all the four types, but let's talk about spastic first. This spastic cerebral palsy affects more than 50% of the children. Now, what is cerebral palsy? Let's first of all understand about that. Cerebral palsy, cerebral means something that is affected to brain, and palsy means weakness which is associated with the muscles. So in all, there is a defective cognitive impairment in the brain, which leads to slurred speech, lack of muscle control, and also there is lack of bowel bladder control in such patients. The other features of this cerebral palsy are paralysis, poor balance, irregular gait, and uncoordinated or involuntary movement that can be a loss of voluntary muscle control also. Now, as we talked, spastic cerebral palsy is the most common, and kids who are affected from spastic cerebral palsy, they have stiff muscles. They may be affecting the upper part of the body, the lower part, or both the parts of the body. Now, let's talk about what are the different types of cerebral palsy. Okay, so there are different types like dyskinetic, spastic, ataxic, or mixed type of cerebral palsy. Now let's talk about this spastic cerebral palsy. This results from the damage to the cerebral cortex, and which can lead to muscle tightness, that is stiffness, then can be jerky movements and joint stiffness also. Talking about the ataxic cerebral palsy, it results from the damage into the cerebellum, which is the area responsible for balance and the posture control of the body. Also, the motor learning and cognitive functions are affected because of this ataxic cerebral palsy. The third type is dyskinetic cerebral palsy. They have trouble in controlling the muscle movements and may experience involuntary twitching, and this can result due to the damage of basal ganglia. Now, children who are affected by more than one of the type of cerebral palsy, that is considered as a mixed cerebral palsy. This can be due to multiple areas which are being affected, and there can be different symptoms which are mixed from all these types, that is spastic, ataxic, and dyskinetic. Now, how this cerebral palsy is managed? Medications can be given which to be controlling, which control this condition. They can be anticholinergic medicines, anticonvulsants, or antidepressants, whichever are needed. Also, muscle relaxants to release the muscle stiffness can be given. Surgeries which can be followed by medicines are the baclofen insertion, gastroenterology, hearing correction, orthopedic or pulmonary corrections, surgeries, and the vision correction can also be done. Equipments like the baclofen pumps, feeding tubes, and hearing devices are given to the patients. The alternative uh, treatment plans are nutrition, yoga, adaptive sports, acupuncture, massage therapy, etc. And the other therapies like occupational therapy, speech therapy, recreational therapy, that all can be given for overall development. So that's all for this question. Thank you, everyone.